Amid the standoff with Bharat, the Canadian government has clarified that the government of Canada has not stated nor is it aware of any evidence linking PM Narendra Modi, Minister Jaishankar or NSA Ajit Doval to the serious criminal activity within Canada. Meanwhile, Canada's public-funded schools have launched a contest to write poetry about the 1984 Sikh riots. Now, Eco Salish Secondary in Surrey, British Columbia, launched this contest for grades 8 to 12. The Hindu Forum has written a letter to the school demanding balanced and unbiased understanding of Itihasa or history as things happened. The Hindu Forum has demanded students should also be taught about the Kanishk bombings. In wake of the Canadian authorities' inability to provide even the minimum security against heightened threats, the Indian consulate in Toronto has actually cancelled some more consular camps in the country. All these developments are happening simultaneously, and there is more. Canada's Vaishno Devi Temple has been forced to cancel an event after the Halton Police, under pressure from K elements, refused to give the venue, calling it a blatant demonstration of incompetence and an inability to ensure the safety of community benefit events. The Mandir administration has said, "We demand that the Halton Regional Police Service (HRPS) take immediate action to provide viable solutions for Hindu Canadians, Sikhs, Muslims and others who rely on these services, especially seniors." They added, "The impact of this Khalistani extremism is affecting countless Canadians and a concrete resolution is needed now more than ever." There's more. CNN News 18 had reported earlier how Canada's Peel Police demanded money to protect Hindu groups. Intelligence sources have said that the police allegedly demanded $70,000 to provide protection, angering the community, which said, "We are also taxpayers. Why this bias towards us?" The Peel Police, instead of addressing the issues, our issues, is putting undue pressure on us. Intelligence sources have said that the cops were under pressure from Khalistani groups to force temples to cancel their events. The Justin Trudeau-led government is under pressure before the finance bill to oblige Khalistani groups in Jagmeet Singh, who's blackmailing the Canadian Prime Minister. This is for the first time in the world that local police are actually demanding money to protect minorities, is what they have said. Let's go across to our guests who are joining us with more on this. Ramnik Mann is with us, Sushant Sareen is with us, and we'll also try and go across to Terry Milewski, who are with us. Namaste, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Terry, has this ever happened that local police says, "Give me $70,000, otherwise I can't cover you, I can't give you protection"?
It's extremely unusual. And it's a bad development. It's not something that should be encouraged for police to say, "Sorry, you're on your own." Basically, that's what they're telling these people. That if there is a threat, and if there is a possible violence, which, by the way, has recently happened, it's not a crazy idea. If there is violence, then you're on your own. Unless you want to hire us for 70, and I've heard higher figures, as high as $100,000, to protect your meeting. And this effectively, of course, gives those demonstrating, those threatening these meetings, it gives them a veto. That's what's happening with this money. These temples don't have that kind of money to spend on private security, as it were. Basically hiring the police in uniform to come and off duty and look after the meeting and make sure that the threats don't become real. So you're giving a veto to the Khalistani groups who are threatening and announcing now that they will carry on more demonstrations. They've announced demonstrations, I think, in Oakville, Scarborough, a couple of places in Ontario. And they're saying that we are going there because we're demonstrating against the Indian diplomats who are doing these life certificate camps. But basically, you do your paperwork for your pension. And of course, about half of the people in the temple are Sikhs, because that's roughly how many they are in the population. So this is a disgraceful development, in my view, giving a veto to people who want to cause trouble. That's the only reason they're there. They want to cause trouble. They want to divide Sikhs and Hindus, and they want to also create the illusion that that's what this is all about. It's a Sikh versus Hindu struggle, whereas in reality, as we all know, it's a Khalistani against Sikhs and Hindus struggle.
But Ramnik Mann, this aspect of the history, poetry, why should poetry be about 1984? Why is it that history is starting only from 1984 in the Canadian education system with respect to India, Sikhs and Canadian Sikhs?
Anand, because it suits the Khalistani narrative, because that is precisely what they've been preaching, and that's how they earn their money. That's their bread and butter. You know, that's something that they have been publicizing about, they have been harping on, and that's basically the death of several Indian Sikhs in Delhi and Punjab and other places in India is basically their milking cow. That's their cash cow. So that is one. But talking about Jagmeet, you know, how would you, Anand, feel if a country, you being a MP or a elected representative of a country, are denied visa 3 times in 2013, 2014 and 2018. So Jagmeet has been denied Indian visa 3 times for the reason that he supports Khalistanis and something that you just mentioned. He's been harping on the 1984, but of course, there is no doubt about it. What happened in 84 was horrific. And the Congress people involved, or the government of that day under Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, should be tried, and those ministers and congressmen, as Rahul Gandhi admitted once that there were people who were involved, should be punished. And who did it for the first time? It was reopening of the cases after Modi came to power. And when do you see people like Sajjan Kumar going to jail? Only when a retrial happens. So that is something which should be talked more about in Canada. But again, you know, I agree with Terry there, and this is something I've been saying for long, that they're trying to create a wedge between the Hindus and the Sikhs. And, you know, again, so the Indo-Canadian Hindus and Indo-Canadian Sikhs who are pro-India are at the receiving end of these Khalistani terrorists. And let me again reiterate that they are Canadian terrorists and they are American terrorists. These people who are propagating this, you know, including Jagmeet Singh and the plumber who was killed, were Canadian citizens. So these are Canadian terrorists. And I don't know, when you talk about blackmail, Anand, I doubt these people have their hands on some Terry tapes of Trudeau. Otherwise, it doesn't seem like so. Because the way the foreign policy or the way diplomacy is being played out is unprecedented. I mean, countries don't behave like this.
See, they've
gone right from accusing our diplomats to our home minister, our foreign affairs minister. Now they're trying to target our prime minister directly. I mean, this is the worst. This is something even Pakistan does not follow. So I again reiterate and say Canada is quickly turning into a safe haven for terrorists. It is a breeding ground for terrorists. And there are people in Canadian government, sadly, who are aligning with the terrorists.
Now, does Jagmeet Singh have something quite incriminating on Justin Trudeau, or because that's the allegation you are making, because you believe that this is unprecedented, this kind of mollycoddling of a narrative or of a person who should actually be behind bars and unwelcome in Canada also, given the machinations or what he is actually doing and who he represents. But Sushantji, before I come across to you, we got more news. CNN News 18 has accessed the inside track of 2 flip-flops in Canada. Top intel sources are saying Canadian government order on November 19th about extra security measures and need to report 4 hours before at the airport was issued recently, and in sudden developments this was withdrawn without any reason. According to top Indian intelligence agencies, this was done to embarrass Bharat and Indians. In another incident, according to sources, Prime Minister's office asked RCMP to give authorized leak to prominent newspaper of Canada about the involvement of top leadership of India. Now, according to sources, Justin Trudeau's office wanted to embarrass the Indian side while all were away and leaked this story, especially on the G20 fora. Now, according to sources, possibly this was retracted after American pressure, and it was visible in the group picture of Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden and PM Modi in Brazil. Now, that's what the understanding is, that there has been a retraction thereafter. But more importantly, this entire swab, first instruction of swab needs to be taken and then that being withdrawn. Sushant Shareen, why is this so much of K placation which is happening? Isn't this too overt? Yes, Canada has been infamous for giving them space in the past, but isn't this taking things overboard?
No, I think this is pretty much in the fitness of things of what unfortunately Canada has become. It's become a kind of a mafia state. You remember Godfather, that there is a police captain who's actually giving a protection racket to that drug smuggler called Solozzo before he gets killed. This is what Canadian police is. What they are asking for is protection money. This is what happens in a mafia state, where there are these guys who have inserted themselves in the political system, the administrative system, the police system, you name it. They are in the judiciary in Canada, and these are people who will then dictate these kind of terms to the local cops. And we've seen how the cops have behaved. There is, for example, if there is an apprehension of breach of peace, you don't go after the guys who are collecting peacefully for whatever paperwork or for devotion purposes or for praying in a temple. You go after the guys who are going to be disrupting them. Out here, the opposite is happening, that we are not going to molest the guys who are going to be causing the disturbance, but we will go after the people who are potential victims and ask them that either you pay us money or else you are on your own. It's crazy how supposedly developed country like Canada, a rule of law country, as Justin Trudeau keeps reminding us, is behaving in the way it's behaving. And then, of course, you have this spectacle of this quasi-Khalistani Anita Anand and some of the other, including some of the people in the Hindu temples like that Mahinder Lama fellow, a lot of these other characters who actually are, working hand in glove in the same bed with some of these Khalistani elements. And, clearly this whole thing about extra screening and other stuff which some of these people have done is basically, they are going to couch it as though they are trying to protect the flights and they are taking the threat seriously. But if they are taking the threats maced against Indian Airlines seriously, then why are they not going after the people who have made those threats? Why are they going after people who are innocent passengers who are just traveling to India and back to Canada? Why are they not going after the thugs and terrorists who are threatening these flights? Okay, and then of course, but Anand, I will also blame the Hindu and the Sikh community in Canada for allowing these thugs to get away with what they are doing. So, for example, you're talking about, that poetry competition, whatever. This is the weaponization of democracy which has taken place by these thugs. What they've done is they've captured local bodies. They've got, undue influence in those. And out there, they use that influence to peddle their poison, which is what needs to be fought by the Hindu and the Sikh community together to weaponize their votes, in retaliation against these guys. And also, what they need to start doing is they need to start calling these guys out. Unfortunately, that's not happening.
Correct.
So, if they are preventing, for example, they are preventing people, this whole thing about pension schemes, the government of India should simply say, okay, fine, we are not going to do it. Let these people, who are going to be suffering, let them actually weaponize their own votes against these thugs, and these are a lot more people, and overthrow.
So that is something which will have to then become a larger amplification, that it's not that we don't want to give it to you, but unless you stand up against these louts, we will not be able to do it, and we need you to speak up. But Terry, is that happening on ground? Is there growing dissonance against these elements, and are people saying that we're going to call out these irritants? Will that manifest? Because the Conservatives also backed off from the Pierre Poilievre also backed off from the Diwali celebration. So we don't know whether the opposition is going to give any support to the larger numbers.
Yes, the Canadian politicians have not exactly been portraits in courage, have they? Basically, they still are afraid that they are going to lose votes at the next election if they antagonize the Khalistanis, because the Khalistanis are the best organized. They're the ones who come to all the meetings. They're the ones who offer you help at election time. And by contrast, I think it's fair to say that up until recently, the Hindu majority, there are actually more Hindus than Sikhs in Canada.
And they were not so organized. Terry, I've got to interrupt you because I've just realized I've run out of time, so I've got to cut this conversation short. We'll pick it up again. Post results, obviously, ladies and gentlemen. Maharashtra results, Result Day Live here on CNN News 18. On that note, Zakar ready with brass tacks.